Good morning, everyone. Um, Yesterday we had a great discussion, I think, and I do believe that there was some clarity brought to the understanding, the difference rather between um, feminine energy and masculine energy, a difference that I do believe um, helps to answer a lot of the questions that people have or may have had. Um, so I want to see if there are any questions from yesterday. Are there any questions from yesterday, or are there any questions about anything that that you have read or something that came to you that you would like to address today? Okay. Well, in conclusion to yesterday, excuse me. Oh, by the way, if a question comes to you during the course of the discussion, please raise it. So, however, in conclusion about yesterday, um, I want to make the statement about the reason that the um, the male of Akebalon revered the female so much. It is because he readily recognized the pivotal role that femininity, as manifested by female and physicality, was very unique because of the role that she played in the development of one of the most advanced societies the earth has ever known. And I think it is, I don't think I know, it is a, um, a symbol of strength when you are able to recognize and embrace the strength of someone else. It speaks to weakness when you're unable to do that. So, having said that, let me ask again if there are any questions that you would like to raise at this moment. Okay.
Pastor,
So,
I have a comment, or just wanted to kind of ask you a question regarding the young man, the 14-year-old boy with the killing in Georgia,
yes.
and how that's continuing to affect others.
Okay. Are there any are there any questions? I'm sorry, comments about that before I endeavor to speak to it? Okay. One
Hey,
of the
Rick,
Go ahead,
I
Charles.
have a question. I have a question, but it wasn't toward what she just said. It was just close to what she just said.
Let's see how close it was.
All right. Every time I know we had one woman, went in and did some shooting a while back, but every time it's shooting in school and everywhere else, it's always males. So why is it always males have to be the one that's doing all this killing?
Well, you're right, Charles. It is closely related. So I'll address both of them at the same time, if I may.
All right.
First of all, I knew, George, you had something?
Yeah, yeah, and because it may tie into how you might respond, to what Charles mentioned. And
Okay,
what was interesting to me was the father and the son. It wasn't just one person, you know what I mean? But it involved two. And does that have any relevance in terms of what we're experiencing in the macro when it comes to, that father and son relationship? I don't know if that resonates, but I think it's something powerful in there that I just wanted to ask. I'm done.
sure. Anyone else? In reference to what Teresa raised, Charles responded, raised, and George now. All of that is combined. First of all, we have talked about the mindset of violence and destruction. And we talked about the European mindset that birthed that into the earth. And that mindset also includes the domination of males and the domination of masculinity. And to the Caucasian in particular, domination is represented by a weapon. Anything from a club in ancient times to a spear to a gun, especially guns now. Anytime that you are prone to violence because of your mindset, it will spill over into your household as well as your community. And we've seen how it has been, how it has infected the nation from the inception of this nation. When the Mayflower landed at what's called Plymouth Rock, when they deboarded the ship and built shelter, the first thing they did was put 2 cannons on top of the shelter they had constructed to ward off any quote unquote attacks by the inhabitants of the land. And that has continued throughout the history of this country. Now, to Charles' question and Teresa's, I knew it was I knew it was a Caucasian person who did the shooting. I knew it. And I was 99% sure that it was a Caucasian who did it. And my surety came from the fact that he was alive. Tamir Rice standing there with a plastic gun in less than 10 seconds was dead. And this, this young man had killed 4 people and wounded several others and was given the quote unquote privilege of saving his life by laying the gun down. We know that that is not something that happens within the communities where we live. So that in itself spoke to me about this being a Caucasian person who did it. As far as the father-son relationship is concerned, males who see guns as an extension of their power are more apt to pass that to their children, and especially in the community of those with the European mindset. And that did not just start with school shootings. School shootings are an extension of the lynchings that their children attended with them. It is an extension of the entertainment that they saw in lynching somebody, whether it was by a rope or by dousing them with fuel or and lighting them on fire, or whether it was torture. Their children saw this, and they grew up believing that it was okay to do anything that you wanted to do to someone of African descent in particular. That is an extension. I'm sorry, school shootings are an extension of that. When you have such proliferation of guns in a society, where you have 3 to 4 guns in a society to each person in that society, that within itself speaks to the nature of that society. And it may be more than that. Actually, I think it's far more than 2 or 3 guns. But anyway, the point that I'm trying to make is when you feed a society like that, then what you begin to see is the results of years of violence. So why now are we beginning to see it with a greater clarity? Because we are on the precipice of change. The precipice of change also reveals to us not only what adults in this society are doing or planning to do in terms of the Project 2025, but it also shows us what has seeped into the minds of their children. And for a young man at age 13 to speak about shooting up a school, and his daddy purchased a AR-15 style weapon for him the next year. That within itself speaks to the violent nature of the society that we live in. I honestly, I am exceptionally glad that the daddy was arrested, and I certainly would be elated with him doing prison time for what happened, because he is just as responsible, more so than the child is. Now, I think that's covers the questions that were raised, does it not, Teresa, Charles, George?
Oh, yes, thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else?
Right.
Okay, Charles. Are there any other questions or comments?
Hey, good morning, everyone. To add on to what you said, Reverend Richard, studies have shown that kids that go to school in uniform, they score higher on the SAT and also on the ACT. For the SAT, it's 75 to 120 points more. I forgot what it was on the ACT. So I think I shared it with you all before. A simple process of putting kids in uniform, I think it would help. For a child to go back to school, you got to get their school supplies, then you got to add on attire. And we should understand this because we as adults, one of the things I greatly admire about Greater New Faith was I would wear the same outfit just about 3 weeks out of the month or 3 Sundays out of the month. And I never got that look, why are you wearing the same clothes? And you can hear it in why you don't go to church. I ain't got enough clothes. So if we could buy into uniforms, that may aid that in the violence in school or the picking at of schools. And some of this that kids are doing, they learning from us as adults. In school, there's bullying that go on. I've always stated this with Monique. Hey, Monique, you going to the PTAO meeting? I don't think you need to be in yoga pants
Oh, come on,
because,
come on, George.
okay, all right then. You know what?
Not your time.
Let the violence be what it gonna be. I just gave my thought, and yes, there are teachers out here who say some things to me. So you all can carry on and state your view. Thank y'all very much.
You're quite welcome. My come on, George was about the yoga pants. That is a personal issue. Uniforms do help with discipline. There's no question about that. However, the school shooting in Tennessee, the kids were in uniform, as I recall, if I'm recalling correctly. The school shootings indeed sometimes are about bullying. However, some of the school shootings, like Sandy Hook, this was a grown man in an elementary school. So I think school shootings are more reflective of the dominant mindset in this society. If school shootings were something that was done randomly in societies, that would be something different. America is the only one who has these many shootings or school shootings. And that is because men buy guns for the purpose of killing other men. You do not purchase an AR-15 for the express purpose of shooting or of hunting. That's a lot of money to spend just to shoot at water bottles. So when we think about the society itself, it promotes this type of violence. And to say that there should be more security in the schools, that within itself is total ignorance and insensitivity without any empathy for what's going on. Why should kids have to go to school and wonder whether or not they're going to live to the end of the day? Go ahead, George.
Yeah, Reb, I've asked a couple of African American females who I would view on a professional level. They dot their I's, cross their T's. When you look at gun sales from the last 3 years, the African American female has really been a spike in gun sales. And I asked them, I'm like, all before you were saying vengeance is mine, said of the Lord, and now you saying it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. And when I asked these females, one in particular, why you got a gun now? George, I ain't got no man and I ain't married and I need some protection out here. So the African American female has really shown a spike in the purchase of handguns, not AR-15s. I'm talking about the Sig Sauer, the Smith & Wesson 380. The African American female has really catapulted gun sales. You have when you pass by that place on 26, Wednesdays, females shoot for free.
Yeah.
I'm not against guns. I grew up around guns. And I grew up around guns that were loaded. They stayed in the corner of your house, and you just knew not to mess with it. And it was education. They just, hey, you don't mess with this. Let me show you what it can do. It's just that the world is crazy around here now. And I don't think the public should have weapons that are better than the police. So that's just my view on it. And Reverend Rich, the yoga pants thing and all that, these are all things that may disrupt society. Because kids, from bullying, you talk about somebody mama and you black, man, you gonna have to do something. So, but that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Okay. First of all, females in weapons, African females in particular, their mindset is no different than the mindset of everyone else in this society. Everyone think they need a gun to protect themselves because that's the nature of the society that we live in, and it's dominated by a European mindset that put emphasis on weapons of mass destruction. It put emphasis on killing someone if they touch your property or if you disagree with them. That's a societal thing. And the other thing is that females have been denigrated to the point where they feel like there is nobody to protect them, especially African females. And that mindset must be changed. When you begin to realize who you are and the power within, you don't see a need to protect yourself because you begin to realize that you are protected by the ancestors. You are protected by the universe itself. So when you speak of African females increasing gun sales, you're absolutely right. They are increasing in the purchase of weapons, and they are being trained to use those weapons more so than men are. However, it does not change the reality that all of it is wrong, because the purpose of carrying a weapon is to kill a human. That's the purpose of it. And the only people who can kill a human and walk away are white people. The young boy who killed 2 people went to court and became a hero for white people. That's the kind of thing that promotes not only school shootings, but random police killings, as well as the way the police accost people of color. So I guess the bottom line in all of this is that we live in a society that is filled with weapons for the express purpose of eliminating human beings. Now, all of this is coming to a head. No one really paid much attention as long as we were being shot as a people. But when school shootings started with Columbine, all of the attention began to shift. The idea of what's the difference and school shooting and kids getting shot on their way home from school? There is none. This society has changed. The manifestation of it has not been seen as of yet. However, it will be clearer as we move forward. I do believe that it takes all of us being serious about introspection in order to find out, in order to see who we really are. And when we talk about seeing who we really are, I'm not talking about Kathy saying she's Kathy, Tamara saying she's Tamara. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about seeing the spiritual relationship that we have with each other as we do with the universe. I'm talking about the introspection that says to us that we are purveyors of love and kindness. The attitude of the European is totally different than that attitude of love and kindness. It is the love and kindness and forgiveness has been used against people of color, the African in particular. It has been seen as a weakness. And there are too many of us who believe that love and kindness is a weakness, when in reality, it is the strength that society needs in order for it to survive. Just because something has been used against you does not mean it is a weakness. The only reason it has been used against you is because you allowed it to be. We are in a new day, and we no longer will allow that to continue. Why? Because as we see who we are, we also see the great society that we developed on this earth, a society that that no other society can rival on this earth. We have seen, we have begun to see who we really are. Prior to that, we only believed that our history started in Charleston, on the west coast of Africa, rather, in a slave ship. We are beginning to look beyond that and see our origin, and see the origins of our existence and the existence of humanity, and understanding that Kabbalah is a spiritual entity, and every body of land on this earth separated from Kabbalah, and from that landmass. And when that happened, energy also moved further away from the landmass, or further away from the concept of a Kabbalah. And now we are seeing the results of it. But more importantly, we are seeing a golden opportunity to bring balance and harmony into the space in which we occupy. And that is being done through, because the African mother is on the throne. And as long as we recognize that for what it is, we will, and embrace it, rather, we will begin to see manifested a major change. And I see those changes already. And in some of the things that's happening now that escapes our vision. And I will talk about those in a minute if there are no questions based upon what has been said. Question? Comment?
Pastor Dave, I have a question.
Mhm.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
Well, I have a comment first and then a question. George, I understand what you're saying as far as the females getting more weapons, guns, or whatever. That has been out. They put that out there in the macro, like Pastor said. We as females, we feel like sometimes we don't have enough protection. But I started to get me one, but it costs too much. And I said, you know what? You know, I have other priorities. I like to eat and ride. But anyway, Pastor Jay, my question to the family and you is, what's the true meaning of you live by the sword and die by the sword? Is the sword considered as your tongue? That's my question.
Okay. That particular saying can be literal as well as spiritual. The tongue is far more dangerous than a single weapon, because the tongue has the power to destroy more people than one weapon can. What do I mean by that? When you are unaware of who you are, and you are separated from the mindset of your origin, and you embrace the mindset that is adverse to humanity, that is far more destructive than a single weapon, because not only does it destroy you, it also destroys your offspring. That single weapon will destroy you, but not necessarily your offspring. Does that make sense so far, Evan?
Yes, sir, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
You're welcome. So that saying carries a host of meaning, and we should adhere adhere to it. Any other questions or comments?
Pastor, I have a comment that I want to make to Linda. I had read where I cannot think of the man's name that does all the predictions about the president who will be elected, and it came out that he said that Kamala would be the president of the United States. Well, a lot of people lost their minds and everything, and what they're saying now is the Republican Party will vote to elect her, but they will not work with her. But they don't understand that this is a spiritual thing. Everything is going to shift. Things are going to change. And when they realize what's happening, they can't stop it. They can't change it. So that's I want you to speak on his prediction and how, like, the Senate and Congress and everything is going to change.
Okay. First of all, thank you. First of all, on that the thing that's said about the Republicans will not support her, that's nothing new because they did the same thing to Obama. But what they don't understand is that this is a different energy source.
It's prophecy.
The male election, the election of Obama was the male bringing out the true nature of this society. Earlier, I made a statement about the uniqueness of the female in the development and nurturing of the greatest society ever developed on earth. Well, the males protected and provided while because they understood that that female needed to be protected so that she could assume the role that the Creator had put her in, and that is the role of nurturing and forging a way for a society to live in harmony. That's what happened with Obama. It may not look like it was protecting. You know how you go into a blind, you're hunting, and you scare the birds and they fly up, people shoot them when they're hunting birds. Hello? You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
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 So that's Obama's role was to flush out everything that was hidden. And he did it, not by looking for it, but he did it simply by being an African sitting in the seat of the presidency. That's what brought that to fruition. That's what started exposing the underbelly of the society with the Tea Party. MAGA is just a Tea Party on steroids. When he says that they won't work with her, that's not a problem because you have to be there not to work with her. I do not believe that Republicans will have that option because I do believe that if the Creator puts her in a position as she's in, then there will be the support that she needs to get things done for humanity. So that I just don't, it doesn't bother me that the Republicans are not going to work with her because they never do.
Well,
Go ahead.
what I'm looking at, they're thinking that this is a way out for them to get rid of Trump without coming out saying, I stand against him. But the thing is, what they're doing is going to change everything, and they don't even realize that.
This is they are going to have an eye-opening experience. They're going to have a serendipitous experience. What do I mean by that? I was telling Phoebe this morning as we were talking that there are going to be a host of Republicans who are going to vote for Kamala Harris because they probably, as you said, want to get rid of Trump. But what they are not realizing is when you are casting a vote for her, you are submitted to her authority. Regardless of what you think you're doing. The universe recognizes your actions, and that is a submission to that authority without regard to what your lips say about her. The other thing is that what we have to recognize is the battle that's taking place spiritually. The Creator there is a battle right before our eyes of good and evil. You remember I said that some time ago, I don't know, years ago or whatever, but a statement about the tree of knowledge and good and evil and the tree of life. I said, suppose that the tree of knowledge of good and evil is the European mindset and the tree of life is the African mindset. You remember that? Anyway, if you don't, just hear it again for the first time. Thank you. Thank you. So what am I saying in reference to that? I am saying that European mindset of good and evil, it does not say of life and death. It says good and evil, rightness and unrightness. It doesn't say life. Why? All life, all human life on this earth comes from a cable line. Yeah, all of it. So when we look at what's taking place now, we see spiritual warfare if you can see with your eye and not your eyes. One of the things that we had to encounter in terms of our spiritual journey to bring harmony to this earth was the mindset of liberals and the mindset of quote unquote conservatives, whatever that means. With liberals thinking, believing that we should not be enslaved, but we should not have the opportunities that they have also. And conservatives thinking that we should be enslaved again or remain enslaved in these virtual chains. Well, the liberals have been vanquished. The liberal thought in this country has melted into the energy of that Kamala Harris represents by the journey that she's taken to be the strongest woman or strongest person on earth in terms of bringing change and order to this earth. Right now, when I say that there is a battle between good and evil, I'm sorry, there's a battle between life and good and evil. Life comes from the African, and life will be, the good and evil mindset will be exposed to this life in a way that it never has been. And that is what make that mindset become ripened. And when that mindset becomes ripened, it begins to embrace those things that perpetuate life. Donald Trump's mindset, and I use his name only because you're familiar with it. Donald Trump's mindset is the mindset that America was brought into existence with. From the mindset of Donald Trump came America, from the mindset of Donald Trump, Europeans function throughout the world. The mindset of Donald Trump is what is used, that energy is used to manipulate, control, and be destructive to the world, especially to people of color. That mindset is a mindset that enslaved us and continue to desire to put us in physical slavery or keep us in this virtual slavery that we're in, to rid this country of us by any means necessary. So having vanquished the liberal, what we see now is African mindset, the woman, the feminine energy that has the unique place in developing a great society versus a mindset of evil, a mindset of death and destruction that has been present in this earth ever since Europeans have been present in this earth. That mindset, and keep in mind, when I say European mindset, I'm not talking about skin color, I'm talking about the way you process and the difficulty in processing the major role that femininity plays, the difficulty with processing because of a European mindset and European influence. So that European mindset is the most detrimental thing on the face of this earth. And the African mother being on the throne is the giver of all life in this earth. So right now, there isn't a battle, because when Biden dropped out of the race and supported Kamala, that within itself brought submission of that liberal mindset, which was dominated by males anyway, white males, under the authority of the energy that has brought her to the space that she occupies currently. And the mindset of the European has to be beaten. When I say beaten, I'm talking about defeated. And in this election, it will be a manifestation of a spiritual defeat, meaning that the mindset of the African mother will vanquish the mindset of the European. Will there be people who think like that? Yes, there will be, but they will not dominate the society, because the place where this type of energy is centered is seen in the being manifested in Donald Trump and his cohorts. Once the defeat is experienced, then that means that not only is the Black mother or the African mother is on the throne, it also means, in addition to that, that we can begin to experience a society that the African experienced in the beginning. Now, you say, so how would this happen? I don't have a clue as to how it will happen. And I'm glad I don't, because I have no desires to shape it. Yet I do know that we are on the precipice of the manifestation of this. And this is what I see with my eye, this battle taking place. I have no doubt that Donald Trump will be defeated. But more importantly, the energy that he is manifesting will no longer be the dominant energy in the earth. And because America is the most feared force on this earth because of the barbaric nature of its existence, once America is brought under the authority of femininity, then the rest of the world will begin to experience that as well. And that experience, I don't know what form it would take. I don't know where it will manifest next, but I do know that it will manifest exponentially once this November 5th election is done. And I do believe that we're going to begin to experience it even before the January inauguration. Any questions or comments about that?
Well, Reb, one question I got for the group is, based upon what Ms. Linda stated, that the Republican Party will vote for Ms. Harris just to get Donald Trump up out of there. Yet there is a spirit out here in our own culture with the African American male and the African American female that they don't see females can be in any kind of leadership. What I mean by that, there's some percentage of people who are African American females that will tell you, I ain't going to no church a female is the minister. And you have some males who say that too. In my core group, I've never heard that from any one of the people that I deal with. Yet, what is their mind state in this paradox of Miss Harris? Because I've asked these people, the ones that say, hey, the female is the weaker vessel, blah, 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 blah. And I asked them, who y'all voting for? Trump, or y'all gonna vote for Miss Harris? And I didn't get an answer. What's taking place with them, Greater New Faith? Or have you heard of any case where the black female is saying, I'm not voting for her because God or the Bible said this or said that? Thank you.
I am here.
And I also realized when you up under that European mind state, being closed-minded, I expect answers like that. But that's all I had to say. Thank you.
You answered your question, because it is the European mindset that fosters that kind of thought and behavior. One of my cousins said the same thing. But I can't relate to you what I said to them. I don't believe it's going to make any difference whatsoever. This is the first time that there has ever been in the history of the country a clear choice between life and death, a clear choice between enslavement and freedom. It is not a coincidence that the theme song for the campaign is freedom. The world is in bondage and the world needs to be free. It is no coincidence that the emotions in the campaign is one of joy being promoted. It is no coincidence that the response to the racist tropes that has been levied towards her, she responds by simply saying, same old playbook, and that's it, as opposed to addressing it or falling for the debate that's being put out there for her, which will take her mind off of what is the real prize. And the real prize is freedom. So with mindsets like that, that's just the European mindset that has to be broken. It is not just the male who has the European mindset. Females have the European mindset also. I had a meeting, and one of the ladies in the meeting said, we need to get leadership, and I think it should be a male. Well, that's European mindset. And that is simply the representation of the domination of European and their mindset. Yesterday, Barbara made a statement reminding us to just be when she was responding to what do we do for us to realize who we are, or something of that nature. And I implore that with the question that George raised, just be. And when you be still and know that I am God, I am the creator, then you have the opportunity to create an environment where the mindset of these people can be and will be changed. We cannot continuously explore the external environment in search of who we are. We can't do that. And yet we still do it. When we are taken aback by what we hear during a press conference or an explanation of what was said at a rally, we are looking externally for peace. We are looking externally for harmony. That's not going to happen. If you're not in harmony with yourself, how can you expect the society to be in harmony? Harmony begins with you, just like love begins with you. Does that make sense? Questions or comments?
Yes, that makes a lot of sense, Pastor Jay.
Does,
Thank you.
Pastor?
Uh-huh.
Good morning, everyone. This is Kathy. I want to go back to something George asked earlier, a comment that George made earlier, and I have a question about it. He asked, well, he stated that he feels that uniforms will make a big difference for children in school. And I wholeheartedly agree with that statement. And I was in school long enough. I was there before uniforms, and I was there after uniforms came into play. And for a while, when uniforms came into play, it did exactly what it was supposed to do. It curtailed the bullying, put everybody on an even playing field, and it was supposed to give children a sense of equality. And it did that for a while. But then when I started thinking about my last, I would say 4 to 5 years in the school system, in Rock Hill, we had a mental health assessment that we had to do anytime there was a report of any type of perceived violence that a child may carry out in the school. There were 3 counselors in my department, and I know that we each did one of those assessments. I would say we've had to do about 5 assessments a week per grade level. And the way it was set up in Rock Hill, if we determined from that assessment that a child was a potential threat, the parent had to come and remove the child and could not bring the child back to school until they had gone through a mental health evaluation. So when I think about what George said about uniforms, they do hold a place. But now here's my question. It made me think when he said that, wow, I hadn't thought about that. Uniforms are supposed to perform a certain task, and they did for a while, but it's not as effective anymore. So my question becomes, could it be, based on what you said earlier about parents taking children to lynchings and to seeing someone tarred and feathered or burned, all of these different things. And the scriptures talk about the sins of the fathers being passed from generation to generation. Could it be that what we are seeing play out in these schools in the form of shootings from these children is the generational sins of the father that is now has now compiled into something that is like mental illness in their children based on the violence that has always been the nature of the European that they have grown up with is now ingrained in them. And if that is the case, can we put it in the macro to change that by our desire? Because regulating gun laws, we see that's not happening. We got too many people standing against that. I believe eventually it will, but we don't see it happening right now. That's not curtailing any of the violence in school. But I guess I'm looking at what is the origin? Could it be the mental illness that is now playing out from the generational sins of the father, as the scripture speaks of? And don't we have the ability and the power to put this in the macro to shut this down when we understand the root cause, is my question, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, can I answer that before you respond to it, Reverend Richard, if you don't mind?
Go ahead.
Thank you for having my back on that, Miss Cassie. At least you understand it.
We understood it too, George, that what the role that uniform played, but go ahead.
When kids were in uniform, and I've never seen it implemented yet, when kids are in uniform, it's more so under the energy of it takes out that energy of competing with people. It almost makes the playing field level. And my first introduction to being in the uniform was my introduction to the Criminal Justice Academy. I was the first class to be ever that we had to wear uniforms, and our uniforms consisted of a Dickie outfit. And the reason why they implemented that was if a candidate is from Charleston Police Department in uniform and a candidate is from Vance, South Carolina Police Department, naturally we would show more favor with the Charleston candidate. So just by keeping kids in the uniform, it removes, I'm not saying it's going to zero it out. I'm just going to say it's going to eat at it. It takes that competition out of play. So that's all I had to say on that, Miss Cassie. Just by being in uniform, it takes that energy away of competing with people. And some people can't function when you got on a pair of PF Flyers and the person who you sitting beside got on a pair of Air Force Ones. It can really have an impact on how people gain their education. So education may not want that because it could be from an aspect of, man, these kids stay in uniform. One of these kids gonna bring up a cable on. So that's all I had to say. Thank you.
And it's funny you use that example, George, with the shoes, because what I saw playing out when we did start with the uniforms, after all the pushback and all from the parents who were pretty affluent and didn't want the uniforms, when they finally complied, their shoe game became the defining factor. They made certain their kids had the most expensive shoes now. And so there's always a way to get around it. But I guess my bigger question, even so, is I'm seeing this now, and I hope you understood my question, Pastor, is I see it as a spiritual thing that the scriptures talk about, and I'm questioning, is that what is playing out in the minds of these children?
Yes.
Have they been turned over to a reprobate mind based on the sins of the father? Not all children, but some children, I mean.
Yeah, I have you.
So,
yeah.
okay.
First of all, okay, go ahead.
Interject something because I think it's related to what Kathy is saying. Because when we were talking about the 14-year-old and all the shootings in schools, to my mind, it goes back to domestic violence and abuse, because it seems like whenever somebody does that and then we find out the backstory, it always has something to do with domestic violence and abuse. And to Kathy's question, those children's parents having done things and witnessed things that possibly that spiritual, that mindset passed to their kids, but then also because the parents and grandparents had seen and done things like lynchings and whatever, I imagine they had maybe not guilt, but something that sort of prick their consciences or whatever. That, and then that turned into maybe domestic violence because of, I mean, they couldn't go out and kill a bunch of blacks anymore or do whatever. So all of that turned on the females. Do you see what I'm trying to say?
I do.
Anyway, but I think that's
I do.
connected.
Okay, it is connected.
Can I add something?
Sure.
Can I add? This is Mary. So, I've been watching the video on post-traumatic slave syndrome and how what the Caucasians did was to try to take away our humanity, and in the end, they end up losing theirs for trying to take ours.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we are suffering the consequences, and so are the children, their children. So this is a good thing that the spirit is the way it is now, that we can all come back together as one, as, you know, that's where my thinking is. Because the kids, you're thinking, okay, y'all doing all this stuff, the Caucasians did all this to us as slaves when we were slaves, and it's horrific stuff, as you well know what was done to us. But they also did it to themselves. We weren't slaves, but we are descendants of slaves, and the Caucasians are descendants of slave owners and all of the damage and the detriments that they did to us. That's all I want to share. So now we're seeing that everybody, they are reaping what they sow, but we are still dealing with that mentality, and that's why you see the anger and the violence that we have with each other, because we have not yet dealt with the deeper meanings. That's all. The residuals of slavery. That's it.
Thank you.
Well, one thing I will add to what has already been said, every one of us gonna come into this world looking like our mama and daddy. And every one of us gonna leave this world looking like the decisions that we have made. I heard Miss Cassie say this many moons ago prior to COVID. You have some parents out here who want to be their children's friend, and they'll turn on you. And it's out here where parents want to be their children's friend. And it's in our community. It's in the African American community. I just know in my household, I ain't like it. Yet, when they need something, they know who to come to. They know who's going to get it there instantly. So you're coming in this world looking like your mama and your daddy, and you're going to leave this world looking like the decisions you have made. If Mr. Doerr was here, Mr. Doerr would say, man, I ain't heard that one in a long time. So the sins of a father, the sins of a mother, just based on genealogy, does play a part. Yet at the end of the day, it is based upon your actions. Although it may sound like I'm against feminine energy, and how I maneuver, it says something differently. Just because some people sound like they for feminine energy in their maneuverability or their choices, they are completely against feminine energy. So, like I say, you're coming in this world looking like your mama and your daddy, or maybe your grandparents, and you're going to leave this world based upon the decisions you have made. I've been to a couple of funerals where in the physical, in this material world, dude was very much frustrated. Yet he looked real good in that casket, though, because he did well for humanity. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else before I say what I need to say?
I just wanted to say, when I'm referencing the sins of the father, and I haven't pulled it up from the scripture, but I'm referencing what the scripture says about it being visited from generation even up to the 7th generation. If I'm quoting it right, am I saying it the right way, Pastor?
Yeah, the gist of it is there. Because,
Okay.
you know, there are 9,000 translations, so however you say it,
Right.
yeah, the thought is there.
Okay.
Is there anyone else before I speak? First of all, the idea of uniforms has been proven. That's how the military makes soldiers, by putting everyone in the same uniform and taking away their identity, whether it be identity from the same area, same county, it doesn't matter. You are the same because all of you look the same in terms of uniforms. And then you're broken down. Your will is broken and rebuilt. The other thing, Mary mentioned the idea of humanity. Those who are enslaved us, they did not lose their humanity. They never had it. And there is a huge difference. They never had it. If they had humanity at any point, then they would not have done what they did in terms of enslavement. The idea of parents being their children's friends, that came into existence because of the way economic progress that we call progress in the African community. Children have Caucasian children have always been friends to their parents, and parents treat them like their friend. And just like dogs in the house, we never did that. But our desire, subconscious or conscious, to be accepted, we started doing what they did in terms of dogs in the house and being friends to our children as opposed to being parents to them. And that is the primary thing that broke down our family's loyalty within the African community. Family structure has always been different in the African community than in the Caucasian community, and it still is. Yet, the breakdown came when we started treating our children like they are our friends. To the question, the sins of the father. First of all, when we really think about what that means, it is another way of saying that the DNA of the father would be in the DNA of the child. Just like we have trauma from enslavement, it built into our DNA that results in aggression, depression, etc. This DNA of barbaric acts, such as lynchings, are in the DNA of their children. And the primary subject of their lynchings is us. Now they call it school shootings, but they're lynchings. They're beginning to lynch each other. They're turning on themselves has always been what eventually happened. If you read about the enclaves of Caucasians in Europe during the earlier ages for Caucasians, you will find that the idea of thievery and murder was a part of their lifestyle, especially if they came across a smaller group who was they deemed to be weaker than them. It was a continuous thing. So this idea of humanity was foreign to those who enslaved us. Keep in mind also that the population of this country came from two sectors of people, the Puritans and what was called Pilgrims. If you would give me a moment to delineate the two. The Pilgrims were called Pilgrims because when they faced religious persecution in England, they they made a pilgrimage to Holland, and that's where they picked up the name Pilgrim. And the Puritans were called Puritans because when King James separated from the Catholic Church and established the Church of England, there were one of his daughters who he had by the woman he divorced was a Catholic in her heart, and she began to perpetuate Catholicism because he had ended it. But the thing is this: the Puritans were the ones who went to King James and requested of him that the Church of England would purify itself, meaning that it would separate itself from anything that Catholicism had presented to the quote unquote church. And they wanted to be totally different, and he rejected that. So they moved into Holland and other places, and finally they ended up boarding the ship that ended up in England. I mean, in New England, that was called New England now. So when you take into consideration the barbaric nature of what happened in England during that period, because when Mary came into power in England, she slaughtered every high priest in the Anglican Church, or the Church of England rather. She slaughtered all of them because her desire was to make England a Catholic nation again. When you take that in consideration and look at what religion has done to us this day, you can see the remnants of the barbaric nature of religion, and the reason that Caucasians in this country were able to go to church and slaughter men, women, children, and then go back to church that evening and have no reservations about it whatsoever. So the bottom line is that this has been in the DNA of the European mindset since they've been on this earth. And the trauma, just like the trauma of slavery is in our DNA, the trauma of being a barbarian is in their DNA. So that is the reason the European mindset has to be, quote unquote, purified. The European mindset has to be transformed by the energy of a mindset of love and kindness. Does that respond to all of your questions and comments?
Well, it does, but my other question is, since we know this is spiritual, well, let me speak on my behalf. When I hear of another school shooting, having spent the last 39 years of my life in that setting, it just sickens me and breaks my heart. And then I want the protection for the children and for my colleagues, because, teachers aren't going in there with combat pay, and it has become a combat zone. And so I pray for the safety of all of them. I breathe for the safety of all of them, let me say it that way. But my thing is, it had never crossed my mind until this morning that we put everything else in the macro that we want to change. Why haven't I ever thought to do that before today? And it was like a buildup from the uniforms to what they were supposed to do to what we're still waiting for legislature to do that's not happening. So going back to when Audrey was saying the other week, what do we do? And I know we just be, but I mean, I need to push. I feel like if we push our energy to the source of ending this ourselves, my question is, don't we have the authority and the power to do that, or is it necessary right now? I guess I didn't say it clear enough. Let me phrase it that way. Does that make sense? Do you understand what I'm asking?
Yes. What we're discussing right now is putting it in the macro. And do I believe that we have the authority, the power, the essence to change it? Yes, I do. When and how it changes, I don't know. This change is a part of changing the mindset that is prevalent in this society. The dominant mindset in this society fosters that. The dominant mindset in this society doesn't care about school shootings, they care more about guns. So by virtue of our discussing this, what we are saying in essence is that there needs to be a healing taking place in the with the trauma of enslavement, as well as with the trauma of lynching. And the children are actually crying out when they do this. And if we don't do it, then who will do it? Legislators are not going to do it. And I don't expect them to do unless we push it. And I mean push it by putting it in the macro. Because you can legislate anything you want. It's not going to be enforced unless the mindset is changed. The National Rifle Association has more power in Congress than do the parents of these children who've been killed and the ones who did the killing. Why is that so? It is simply because of lobbyists. Lobbyists is another word for money. Lobbyists pay, contribute to campaigns. So that is another way of saying that because of the money that's being infused in Congress, there will not be legislation passed that would bring this to an end. When we look at the support that Kamala Harris is getting, in 2 weeks, she raised over $300 million. In the month of August, over $300 million. And this is coming from small donations. And when you are talking about receiving support from small donations in the world of politics, you're talking about a groundswell of support for you. And by virtue of speaking to the vile nature of big business and the vile nature of gun manufacturers, you are bringing to the public forum a desire to end the stranglehold that these companies have on this society. The only companies in this country that you cannot sue for negligence is the gun manufacturers, and that will be a manifested change when she takes the oath of office. So yes, it is necessary to put in the macro. Yes, we can change things, and yes, it is already out there. Does that help you, Kathy? Does that respond to your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you all so much. I love all of the input. Thank you.
All right, thank all you guys. Any other questions or comments? Okay. No questions or comments. We will see you guys on tomorrow evening at 6 o'clock, and I want to express my heartfelt thanks for your presence this morning, and leave with an abundance of love towards each other and humanity. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Take care, family.